Psalm 23.
Welcome to the Carr and Seguin Show, hosted by Devon Carr and Paul Seguin, where two Michiganders dive into real estate, outdoors, community building, and everything in between.
Welcome.
What was that?
Welcome. I guess you got a text. Welcome to episode 116 of the Carr and Seguin Show. Today, we're diving into the top tips. I'm not even going to put like a number on it. It's just good. What you got to listen to the whole show. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk top tips to do as a buyer in this crazy market we're back in again. If you guys have been living on the moon or watching way too much media news, we're back kind of right where we were in 2021 and early 2022, where it is a seller's market. The inventories are still low. Mm-hmm. And we are back to multiple offers. We're back to a
few less offers, but
not as crazy. There's only been a few homes that I've heard like 20 multiple offers. I mean, my listing got 17 offers. Right. You don't hear too many of them, but we're back to at least 5 or 7 all day.
Yeah, everything's still multiple.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're still getting a handful, if not a few more over that. Mm-hmm. Which just breeds a super competitive market. Right. So we're right back to doing some of the old stuff when we're writing offers, right? And, not all of them are maybe appealable to a lot of people, the things we have to do in order to be considered, or at least to be at the top of writing offers. But I think all in all, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just saw this article today that the housing index is up again. Mm-hmm. This for the month of March, isn't it? It was 0.2% for February and 0.6% for March, I believe.
Give me a second.
Or was it year over year was up 0.6?
I think year over year is up.
So, guys, if you don't know what that means, it means everything that the media that you have believed, thinking that, here's the crash that I was been waiting for. I told you realtors that it's going to crash and you guys are all stupid thinking now's the best time to buy because houses aren't going to continue to appreciate. Well, guess what? You're wrong. They are still appreciating. They're still rising. And I guarantee you the data as April and May and June and July and August roll out, I guarantee you would be even laughing again that the prices are still going up. And I'm not tooting my own horn or saying that I'm the only person that said this, but I have been telling you all this, that inventory is going to be the driving factor for real estate market.
CoreLogic home prices. CoreLogic reported that home prices rose 1.2% in April, beating estimates of 0.8%, and now are up 2% year over year, which is down from the 3.4% on comps. But this comes after rising 1.6% in March.
Yeah. I mean, but to me, that data right there, after the fall and the winter that we just came off of,
they're saying
was told you so.
CoreLogic forecasts that home prices will rise again in May.
Duh.
By 0.9. Remember, these are reports, so when we're in June, they haven't got their May report.
Right.
And rise by 4.6% over the next 12 months.
Yeah, there's a real estate crash coming, y'all.
Black Knight just reported that home prices rose 0.5% in April, following a 0.5% rise in March. If you were to analyze the readings we've gotten so far this year, we would see a 4.5% gain.
Huh. Which is pretty dang good. Mm-hmm. I mean, normal appreciation is what, 2 to 4%?
Yeah. Prices
I mean, guys, we wanted to get back to normal, didn't we? Here we are.
Says, according to Black Knight, prices are almost universally rising again on a seasonal just basis, with the exception of Austin, the only market with for sale inventory back above pre-pandemic levels.
Austin, Texas?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that. Why? Why Austin?
Probably because Austin was booming before the pandemic.
Was it?
Yeah. I mean, there was a huge, they were putting all kinds of money into it before COVID.
It was just
and
growing
everything.
like crazy. Because it's a very like young town, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Very millennial kind of town, just super young. Which makes sense a little bit. But that's the thing. I mean, guys, I'm just going to say this once. If you're complaining about the real estate market and you want to sell, you're the problem. And you can say, why? How can you say that? Because you're the one that's sitting there saying, I would sell, but I'm not going to. I guarantee you, if that's you and a lot of you just said, okay, I'm going to list my house, watch the market change. And it's not only going to, not that we want it to change, it's just, I think there's more opportunities. Mm-hmm. The more homes we have on the market, the more opportunities there are. Maybe it would help slow things down and not have to do some of these maybe crazy things that you maybe don't want to do. And maybe that's a driving factor of why you don't want to sell, because when I go buy a house, these are the things I'm going to have to do, and I don't want to do them.
Right.
And it's because of you sitting on your freaking hands doing nothing. Because that's just our problem. It's inventory. Inventory. If we had higher inventory and went through this fall and winter, I think we would be in a lot worse position.
Mm-hmm.
But because we did go through fall and winter with super high interest rates and inventories were so low, the people that were still having to buy for certain reasons, because there's always that group of people that, regardless of what's going on in rates or market, I have to sell, I have to buy, I have to move, I have to relocate. There's still those people.
Right.
It doesn't matter the time of the month or the time of the year. Every single month there's those situations, divorces, job relocations,
growing families.
Yeah. You name it. Someone got murdered down the street. I'm out of here.
Yeah, right. You saw a ghost.
Yeah. I swear my basement's haunted. I'm out of here. There's those don't change with markets, right? There's always that base buyers that happen.
Well,
and we're at such a low inventory where the base of those buyers keep the market going. And then when you bring the spring around, and all of a sudden here's all these other people, and you still have that mixed bag of guys just hanging around. I'm telling you, if you want these things to get a little more easier to buy, then freaking list your house, y'all.
Right.
Like, stop sitting on the idea of selling, because I know a lot of the things that you're sitting at is like, wow, yeah, well, that's wonderful, Paul, because that means I get to put $200,000 in my pocket. You do.
Mm-hmm.
And when do you ever have an opportunity to do that?
Right.
So don't sit on it. Because what if down the road, I don't know, and nobody does know, but who's to say that in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years, maybe there is a bad market, and you just lost $100,000. So I would hate to say in my same life that I lost a chance to make 200 and I lost $100,000
right.
in the same sentence, because you just didn't sell.
Right.
Anyways, and I understand. If you're in a house that you love and you don't want to move, then don't move. Whatever. Sit for yourself.
This does not apply to you.
Yeah, it does not apply to you. But so here's a couple things real quick that right to the point. I'm going to try not to bring out the Seguinism and talk a lot. See how that goes. But number one, most important, which is, and we've talked about this on the show many, many times, most important step when beginning the home buying process is to get pre-approved.
Yes.
Now, Devon, is there a difference between pre-qualified and fully pre-approved?
Yes.
What is the big difference?
So pre-qual, they normally do a soft pull or just kind of look over.
You're at, like you do an app.
Right. You do an application, then look it over, and then you're
not even doing a hard pull on your credit?
Right.
Just kind of looking.
Just looking.
Say, hey, great.
And pre-approval, you go through the whole process. I guess nowadays it's more of I would say a looser term Because a lot of people don't get documents and stuff before they say, "Oh yeah, you're good."
Right.
But yeah, you should give your documents to your lender. Let them review it.
Mm-hmm.
You run it through an automated underwriting system. No matter what lender you go through, they're all the same.
Yep.
And then you can get pre-approved.
And so for the audience knows, those documents that you're talking about, what are those typically?
Driver's license, last 2 years W-2s, and then last 2 months bank statements. If you make overtime or bonuses, commission, normally you want to include your last 2 year-end pay stubs
to show those
because you're going to have
amount.
to take averages for that.
For the bonus and commission
for the
amounts?
bonus, commission, overtime has to be 2-year average. If you're
Okay.
self-employed, your tax returns,
2 years?
last 2 years tax returns, driver's license. It's pretty much the big ones.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Your driver's license, if you're a W-2 employee,
Yep.
your last 2 years of W-2s, right?
Yes.
Last 2 months of bank statements.
30 days pay stubs.
30-day pay stubs. So really like your 2 last paychecks,
Right.
right? And that usually gets the ball rolling to do the underwritten
Right.
pre-approval.
You can verify. I mean, the biggest thing I would say is if you're variable income, that's when it takes a little bit more time.
Because you got to really
Well-
find that average.
You got to find the average, and everybody's pay stubs are different. So some don't include hours.
My auntie does my payroll.
I mean, some of them are. It's a laundry list of different places they put income, and then you got to sift through, and you got to
Figure out
what this means. This abbreviation means. Where do I put this income? I mean, if your pay stub's more than just
one line.
hourly, bonus, commission, vacation,
Yeah.
sick pay. I mean, it can take a little bit
Right.
longer on some of them.
Well, there you go.
And you might have to reach out to your HR department, or we might have to reach out to your
And
HR
get it clarified up a little
full
bit.
verification of employment to make sure that
What you're looking at
is
is
correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because it could hurt you or it could help you.
right,
And
Yeah.
either way,
right.
once
I mean,
it
if
gets
you
figured out.
get bonuses, I mean, maybe you got another one coming.
Right.
And it doesn't show that, but when you talk to HR, they say, yeah, you got one coming, or they got one coming in X amount of time, I mean, you
Which
can
is
use
probably
it.
in that period, that buying period.
Yeah.
Right. Right. It's huge. So, with a tip for y'all listening, if that's you, if you know your pay stubs look like a freaking smorgasbord of numbers,
Right.
maybe get ahead of the curve.
Yeah. It might take a little
and
while.
give your
It's
lender a heads up.
just not that easy.
Right. Right. And that's obviously being on this side of the spectrum. When dealing with deals,
Mm-hmm.
when there's maybe I just had a deal that we did with someone that was a bank statement loan.
Oh, yeah.
It's a freaking mess. The lender was a mess.
Oh,
Dude,
they're not that bad.
they're not bad, but
They can be.
I'm not shaming anyone, but I think the lender wasn't vetted. It was kind of a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
Lender was great guy, great, awesome guy,
Right.
dude. But it seemed like, he's through halfway through the deal. Was like, yeah, this isn't really a lender we deal with, but they were really the only ones that were taking him. So we had to go with him. Dude, it was a freaking mess.
Which, for those that don't know, if you're self-employed, that's
Yeah.
a big one.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you're for FHA, Freddie, Fannie, conventional loan wise, you take the average of the 2 years. If you got 1 year, so your most recent year is you made less than the previous year, you got to use the less
All right.
of the two. You can't take the average anymore. So the bank statement loan, essentially, there's 12-month and 24-month. You look at the bank statements and see what actually income you're actually getting, and that's what you use. So you get a little bit more
Right.
income.
This lender was just stupid, though. It was like, here's a list of what we need. Great. The next day, here's another list. It was like, dude, this lender just kept going back and forth, man. It was almost like they didn't even know what the frick they were doing. It was getting that frustrating. Where it was just like, yeah, it was insane. We wouldn't even go down that rabbit trail. But
sometimes I would say it's warranted to today's
market
behavior.
Yeah.
They want to know now. So if you waited a day to get all the information, they would have already texted you or called you at night saying, "Hey, I haven't heard from you. What do I need?"
No. This dude was on top of it. Like, and it was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's warranted for today's world where they want to know what's going on right now. When you say, "Well, I'll get back to you in 2 days," they reach out to you before you even, because you would just want to send that one thing. I need this.
Right.
But sometimes it does happen where send multiple.
It just seemed like it was a lot, man. I mean, it just got to the point where the client was just like, dude, I don't know how much more I can do this. Like, I mean, it was that. And I mean, it was like.
And we've had conversations where people have said things and you and I go, it's not that bad.
It's no.
So when you're saying that was bad, I mean, put it into perspective.
It was freaking bad. Because we'd have it all the time where, trust me, there's a lot of clients like, good God, how many more documents do I need to send in? Like, listen, guys, this bank is sending you $300,000.
Right.
If you send $300,000 to me, aren't you going to vet me pretty solid? Aren't you going to want to know updated bank statements right before you send them? Like, I mean, it's just, there's legit stuff. And obviously, I try to do as best as possible to prepare these people. Like, hey, guys, here comes the onslaught of documents that are going to be needed. It's not that bad. Don't overreact to when there's a list of 5 different things that you think you just sent 2 months ago, maybe. But we got to get all new stuff. And there's maybe a couple additional stuff after they really review it that may be needed because maybe something comes into question. Like, one of the big things in the bank statement loans, there's, it's a business. You're going off of bank statements. And there were some very large deposits that had to be verified, which then you get their CPA involved, and the CPA was taking forever. And then it was like, yeah, it was just, which happens. It's business.
Yeah, well.
You got multiple parties involved and partners and money moving, and it's like, I'm just trying to buy a friggin' house here.
Right, yeah.
Money's solid.
Right. And everyone's different. Sometimes, you only need 8 items.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
Other times, depending on how much, you're paid, job changes. There's a lot of factors that determine a little bit how much more work you gotta.
Well,
to verify, it's not as easy.
It's not, and it's not like buying a car. It's
right.
It's not like applying for a credit card. And I think sometimes, especially people who may have not bought a house in a long time, where lending is just done differently too. Mm-hmm. Now compared to the 80s or the early 90s, like things are just done differently. DocuSign, sending all that kind of stuff too adds to the mix as well, especially if we're dealing with certain kind of clients that hate computers.
Yep.
I'm sorry, our parents' age, 50s, 60s, like, guys, wake the frick up. It's 2023. How do you not know how to use? You can just use a phone. Here's my biggest tip that seems to be the best thing lately, is everyone tries to sign with their phone like this. Twist it this way, and then everything gets wider.
Mine just were blown.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, Paul, that just got really easy. I'm like, thank you, God. Not to make fun of clients. It's just, I get it. There's obviously, we do this every day.
Right.
You don't. You do it every once, like 15 years.
Well, that's another thing. They want to, we talk about the investment, but how much money they give you, but it's held up for a long time. 30-year mortgage, a car is 5 years.
Typical loan.
So it's either it's going to get paid off in 5 years or they're going to take it back and then resell it.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier for them to repo a vehicle than to foreclose on a house.
Right.
Costs a way less, too, to do that proceedings. That's what the main point is. There's a lot more involved. You're a lot bigger investment.
Right.
Like you said, they don't, you just don't look at your, I'm going to botcher the word, the amortization chart. Don't look at that.
Right.
Because it's just, you're like,
yeah.
How much am I paying you over 30 years?
Sickening.
So that's why I just paid off as fast as possible.
Right, yeah.
Like one extra payment a year, cut off
Right.
7 years roughly, really fast. But yeah, like you said, they don't, sure, they're making a lot of money on the mortgage, but it's 30 years
Right.
of their investment. Like it's a long time
Yeah.
to just fork you $300,000, right? So I mean, there's and I always try to tell them, like, guys, it'll be worth it. Just
Right.
let's buckle up for a week, get the documents done. Whatever else comes through, I would just say expect for maybe a couple more requests. Just handle it, get it done. We'll move right along, get the cutter closed, and get to the closing table. So we'll get to one other little thing in regards to what an extra step that you could go further that you at Gold Star Financial offers. That is, I think, a lovely thing, especially when it comes to that's the kind of topic we're talking about. In today's market again, how do we make a strong offer? What are some tips to think about, consider about doing to win? Because we all want to place an offer to win.
Right.
The next thing, we're back to appraisal guarantees, unfortunately. Obviously, when we're getting into multiple offers, we're probably going over asking again. So as we go higher and higher and higher over asking, the biggest question always comes into play is appraisal. House still has to appraise if you're getting financing. Sometimes depending on how much money you're putting down, there could be a potential appraisal waiver.
Yep.
We just got that on another house in Ann Arbor because they're putting so much freaking money down. And the lender's like, no, we're good. Conditionally waived on that one, just from the underwriter. Don't even need it. Which is always funny because when we get that in our business, we're like, heck yeah.
Well, yeah.
And then the client's like, whoa, I want to know how much it's worth. It's like,
You don't want to spend the money.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
You're putting so much money down anyways. Don't even worry about it.
I mean, to be honest, obviously you have to have so much money down. But the appraisal waiver itself is determined by the area that the house is sold and the recent sales.
Right.
Because there are two things. I mean, there's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, both have their own automated underwriting system. So just because you get appraisal waiver Fannie Mae does not mean you'll get one Freddie Mac.
Right.
So it depends on how many homes are actually sold, the values of them,
It's
is
funny you
where
say
it
that.
actually comes from. It doesn't just because you say
Put a
you
whole
put
bunch of money down.
Yeah, you say you put 40% down doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right. No, it's actually true because the house we listed in Garden City, the dude was putting a ton of money down, tons of money. And I don't remember which one it was. Maybe you probably just know, but Freddie didn't, Fannie did on the appraisal waiver, which is so funny because it's like, why would they not? I mean, the dude was putting freaking 70% down. Like nothing
Right.
at all is being loaned against.
Right.
Like you have there should be absolutely no reason to have an
Right,
appraisal.
yeah.
Like even if the market crashed, he's still good.
Right.
But it's funny you say that because that's what the lender on the I just obviously called and just said, hey, Freddie, which one, I don't know which one it was, but
One of them said yes.
one of them said yes and the other one said no to the appraisal waiver. I'm like, dude, even with them putting that freaking amount down, it's okay. That's just sometimes how it goes.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. But so appraisal guarantee, it's a hard line to sign for a lot of people.
Yes.
Right? Which is completely understandable. I think, whether if I'm your agent or not, the one thing that is always looked at, because if an agent marketed the house correctly, they probably listed a little bit below market value, right? Because that's the key thing to do in today's market is drive more traffic. You obviously drive more traffic to the house, which means more showings. The more showings you have, the more offers you're going to get. Just because of that crazy, it's a psychological thing.
Right.
When your agent goes to book a showing and they're calling back and saying, "Hey, sorry, 3's not available. What about at 8:30 p.m.?"
Right.
You're like, "What the frick is it that booked?" Like, yeah. And all offers are due the next day at 10 a.m.
Right. Thank you.
So there's already this switch in the mind of like, well, great, they're going to get multiple offers. It's
Right.
going to go over. What do we got a right to win? So, yeah, the appraisal guarantee is hard because you're essentially telling the seller that if we offer $320 and the house was listed, say, for $300, if you do it, there's two ways to write it. One is a full appraisal guarantee, which is stating that regardless of what it appraises for, you're going to cover the shortfall.
Yep.
Or you can write a max saying, hey, I am willing to cover up to $10,000 of appraisal shortfall. So for that same number's sake, if we offered $320, say it only appraised for $310, you're covered. Even us limiting that 10, we're guaranteeing the $10,000 shortfall, which means you as the buyer has to come up with an additional $10,000 on top of your down payment and all your closing costs to cover the difference. Because obviously a lender is only going to lend on what the house is worth.
The lesser of the two.
Right.
Now, I think one thing to point out about the appraisal guarantee is, say you had a $10,000 appraisal guarantee. You bought, your offer was for $320, came in at $325. That does not mean that your offer goes. Wait, what did I say? Purchasing for $320. $320. Say appraisal guarantee for $10,000. The offer and the appraise for $315 does not mean your offer goes to $325.
No.
It stays. You just cover the gap to your purchase price.
Yeah.
I would say that the appraisal guarantee, when it actually has to happen, more people are confused about it. When just the whole, what do I have to go to?
It's
$325. It's like, no. But in the same token, if you're putting more than, say, the minimum down payment, whatever program you're using, there's always, it's more so with conventional, but there's always an option that, say you're putting 20% down and it came back at $300 and you were purchasing it for $320.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of putting extra money towards your down payment to cover that shortage, maybe you just, instead of doing that, you just pick up mortgage insurance.
Right.
So necessarily you're not
and putting less
bringing more money to the table. You're bringing the same exact thing. You have mortgage insurance now instead of not needing it, because before you were at 20% down.
Right.
And say maybe your mortgage insurance is only $30, $40
a month.
I mean,
and you keep all of that money.
And you keep, if you want to do stuff, it's not necessarily that you have to put additional down, depending on where your situation is.
Right.
But
that's if you're at the beginning saying, okay, hey, we're just going forward at 20% down on a purchase.
Right.
You got some room to play with, right? Obviously, most of the time, most people that are putting the $20K down or the 20% down are doing that to avoid PMI. But at the same time, it's a simple conversation to say, hey, with the little shortfall that we have, why don't we just back off how much you're putting down?
Right.
And then just throw that towards the difference. So then at the end of the day, even though you wrote the appraisal guarantee, you're still only coming to the table the same amount of money.
Right.
But just adding a small amount to your mortgage payment.
Which you can get off in 6 months to 2 years,
anyway,
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either through a refi or the housing goes up and you down, or even just maybe pay a big chunk.
Yeah.
Because you came across some money or whatever, and then just you can have it removed.
Yeah.
Because it only comes off as long as there's an 80-20 split in the home value. Right. A lot of people
automatically falls off at 78, but I mean, it'll
sit on there for a year before they will remove it if you don't say anything.
Right.
Yeah. So you kind of got to stay on top of it a little bit. But at the end of the day, you're not wasting thousands of dollars. It's $600 a year or something.
It's keeps you liquid. I mean, essentially, instead of
I like cash in my bank, not tied up in
dumping
my
it
house.
all to get no PMI. I mean, if you look at it, $25 extra a month, if that's what it is, or I mean, say $50.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still going to take you a long time
to make up the difference.
To make up that difference between what you had to pay extra versus just taking on $50.
Stupid question time.
No, it's not a stupid question. Never is a stupid question.
All right, so I have a house that's worth $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
And a minute ago, you were just saying that you would normally list that below the $200,000 because you want to try to drive people in, right?
Well, correct.
All right, so let's say you put it out there for $195,000, and I say I'm going to close on Friday, so it gives the people 2 days to come and look at my house. And I get an offer at $195, I get one at $210, $250, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, at what point in time as a buyer can I say, you know what? Yeah, I said I was going to sell the house, and even though I only listed it for $195 and I got a $250,000 offer, I ain't selling anymore. Can I do that?
Well, so I mean, obviously that's a conversation we would have while we're signing the listing documents, right? I mean, usually that is determined by the motivation of why you're selling. When push comes to shove, if you're in that moment and you have a bona fide offer, but if you've technically not signed anything, then sure, you can walk. I'm probably coming after your butt for
wasting your time.
Commission.
Yeah.
Well, I just talked to a real estate attorney the other day that kind of your situation where they were representing the buyers and they got halfway through everything and the sellers kind of decided that
they didn't want to sell.
They didn't want to sell anymore.
Well, there's a performance clause in the PA.
And they're saying that I think they didn't provide they didn't provide approval within a certain time frame.
Who didn't? The buyer?
The buyer.
The sellers are trying to push that?
That's what they're trying to push. And then the
BS.
agent or the lawyer was like, but they did send a conditional approval. The PA doesn't state it had to be full approved.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think we got this one, but it's just funny how you said that. And I just talked to her last Friday about it.
Yeah, so every PA has a time of essence performance clause, right? So the seller and buyer are, when they sign that contract, both parties are agreeing to perform the contract. So legally, at the end of the day, if there is some kind of clause that they can point to and say, oh, they didn't meet this performance clause, because that clause entirely covers the contract. Mm-hmm. Right, which there's like 28 different technical clauses that could go and point towards the buyer or the seller to perform in the contract. At the end of the day, if there was never a signed legal binding contract, then yes, technically you do have the right to reserve and say, hey, I don't want to sell.
Okay.
Right? Because there's nothing agreed upon legally, but once we sign and accept a contract, then there's some potential legal ramifications from the buyer and potentially the broker who is listing your house.
All right.
So, because it even says in there, if you do not perform, then you owe us 100% of the commission fee. Because obviously we performed what you hired us to do. We're not losing our money if you just decide to stay.
Right.
Because, I mean, on the listing side, whether people don't know this or not, it costs me money and time to list a house. It's definitely a lot easier when it comes to the amount of time it takes as a listing agent to sell a house, where there's more time invested on the buyer side with showings and going to inspections and all that stuff, right? But I'm forking out my own money to list your house, so you better
pictures
believe.
Everything.
Pictures, marketing,
time,
signs, you name it. Everything that I pay for to do all that all the time as well.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'd be saying, hey, great, that's fine, but here's the 6% you still owe us for doing all this work. I wouldn't say charge 6, but you better believe I'm getting my cut.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
No, but no, very good question. It's not a stupid question though, because I actually do, believe it or not, I actually, not a lot, but there has been some clients that ask me that at the time of when we're signing, and they say, hey, if I ever decide to not sell, and then I just quickly say, well, hey, is there any reason that we should talk about right now of why you wouldn't want to sell? Because that would question me whether we should move forward or not at this time to sell your house. If you have any kind of questioning about that,
right?
Because obviously I don't want to invest my time and my money if you're not 100% saying, hey, I'm ready to sell, let's do this. But very good question.
Yeah.
It is. So yeah, appraisal game. So we can kind of end up, but it is sometimes it's hard. I would agree. There's many times I've been on, I think it's I won't. It's sometimes it's hard for sometimes the people to say like, well, what am I guaranteeing? Can you explain that to me one more time? That doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people nowadays in the scenario that you're saying, I might be wrong, but I think probably more percentage of all my buyers I've had, they're not putting 20% down.
Right.
It's more like 5 is probably the most common percent down. And a lot of people, I don't even know that still today.
Right, yeah. No.
Everyone still thinks they got to put 20% down to buy.
Between 0, 3.5, 5, 3.
3.5 and 5 is by far the most common percentage. And that's just your down payment, y'all. You still have additional like 3 to 5% on closing costs as well, is what I always typically tell people when it comes to buying, how much I'm going to need to close. So going back, so the other thing is a fast closing right now. So if we are able to write a fast close on an offer, I have found out lately, some of the offers that I've been winning lately, we did not give appraisal guarantee, but we insured a fast close and we won.
Right.
And we're winning over people who are giving full appraisal guarantees. Because at the end of the day,
they want their money.
They want their money.
Right.
They want to wrap this up. Sellers, it's a stressful time. It's stressful for everybody, right? Let's not try to downplay buying a house.
Right.
It is stressful. You're thinking about moving. You have to pack all your stuff up. I don't care if you're renting. You still have to pack. You're living somewhere with something.
Right.
You still got to pack up. You got to move. You got to get movers. You got to move. You got to time off of work. You got to move money around. How much? There's a lot that goes into buy a house.
Yeah.
So there's a laundry list. So the faster and easier that we can make this process is very attractive.
Yes, I would agree.
And one way to do that I know you guys at Gold Star Financial offer is called a fast pass. So kind of going back to what we first talked about, it being fully underwritten pre-approval, the fast pass takes it to the next step.
Right.
And what does that look like?
So the fast pass is actually, we go through the whole process and then we actually submit your file to underwriting and they review it. They conditionally approve it, which means that it's going to happen.
We're cutting out the some of the closing process that we typically do once we're under contract.
Right.
We're already taking it to the next level. It's a beautiful thing when we're writing a fast pass offer. Dude, I hammer it. Especially when we're writing like a 3-week close and they're like, well, how are you going to do that?
Right.
Well, all we're waiting on is appraisal. What do you mean? They're already fully underwritten. We already have a conditional approval.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we're waiting on is appraisal.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is a big thing.
So also, hey, you remember how I said 3 weeks? So that was actually, here, we'll just roll right into the next one on top of it, is a fast inspection. I don't know why agents don't do this. Like if you're an agent listening, I'm helping you out tremendously right now. If you have a buyer who is ready to buy and loves a house, freaking get the inspection done ASAP.
Yeah, I don't know if it's more of a gives them time to think about it. I don't know. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Some of them are like 7 days.
10 days. I'm like, what do you need that for?
Yeah.
I'm 3 days all day. Typically nowadays, a lot of people work from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of do. Let's just face it.
Right.
So, dude, the easiness of saying, okay, hey, if we get this contract signed tomorrow, how soon? No, we got 3 days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We got to at least get it scheduled and completed. 3 days. Can you do that? Oh, yeah, it's fine. You tell me. I'll make it happen. Most of my clients, I said, hey, this is an easy way to make our offer look good, and it costs you nothing. You're going to inspect it anyways. You better.
Right.
Why don't we just make that fast? But if we're writing a quick offer, I want to get that out of the way anyways. Plus, the faster we do it, whether I'm right or wrong in this or legally, if we get it done really quick, then maybe if there's an issue and we're dissatisfied and we want to walk, well, then maybe we didn't even cash the EMD check yet.
Right.
I didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Right? So let's just get the inspection out of the way. It's always the biggest question mark. Another thing in regards to a quick inspection, 3 days, is I always have a conversation, and you should be having a conversation with your realtor, is I put in an addendum or right on the bottom of the PA that we are only looking for major issues only, foundation, health, and safety issues only. We're not going to nickel and dime you over a bunch of little crap. Because let's be real, at the end of the day, when you get your house inspected by a good inspector, they're going to create a laundry list.
Right.
That's their job, is to point out everything that is wrong, whether it was DIY induced
Right.
or not updated, and it needs to be updated, or not up to code, or there's issues. You may want to fix this. It's leaking a little. Like, yes, those are things that we want to maybe address if they're a concern. That
Right.
could lead to some issues, but we're essentially looking for major problems, stuff that's going to cost you actually big money.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, there is going to be, like we said earlier,
Yeah.
and a house is old.
To most houses that we're looking in, Livonia, Plymouth, and I mean, dude, they're all built in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
We're pushing 70-year-old houses. It's like we set an example when you go buy a used car that's got 60,000 miles on it. Do you expect it to just be in pristine condition with nothing wrong? I mean, sure, it's working order, but there's going to be some dings. There's going to be some scratches. There's going to be a little wear and tear in the interior. That's the same thing as a house, guys. You know, and I try to have that good conversation up front. So when we go through an inspection, we're not like, oh, hey, can we ask them to fix the faucet? No. Can we ask them to, like, I actually just had a client do this where we were, there was mold in the attic, so we were going after that. That's a safety issue, 100%.
Right.
And what was the other thing? It was mold, and the sewer lines need to be cleared. Nothing was wrong. They just need to be cleaned out. There was some standing water, which could be some little little buildup,
Right.
some tree roots, but there was no cracking, no nothing. And so we're like, we just need to get cleared. So that's obviously a potential major issue. I got it through. We negotiated a little bit because obviously we asked for a lot more than what I was really asking for.
Right. Yeah.
Because we know where we want to get the sweet spot.
Right.
You got to go higher to get where you want. Don't just ask what you want. You ain't
Right,
going to get it. So we were negotiating, and then which was our whole plan. We got them right where we wanted them, and they said yes. And she's like, "Oh, maybe we should have asked for a couple more things since we came down so much." I'm like, "No. That's where we wanted them to say
Right.
yes at."
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So we won. But anyways, it's just to show you, like, that could be because at the end of the day, the seller is not wanting to fix things or be nickeled and dimed over, and it just means that, hey, we're going in there to make sure that there's nothing we're walking into that's going to be a potential down the road for them.
Right.
You know, I never, ever, ever would endorse you waiving an inspection. I know that kind of happened for a little bit as things got really intense in our market a couple of years. Stupidest decision ever. I don't care how nice the house looks. I can make a pretty car look, or a horrible car look really pretty from the outside, and under the hood sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Just take that for an example, y'all. Trust me, I've seen some flips that look phenomenal, and they're just craftsmanship sucks as soon as you look at it in person. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, those are really the biggest things. I know one thing on top that I kind of missed in regards to the appraisal guarantee. If you're willing, like we said about capping the appraisal guarantee, I have done this before and it does work, and it's another alternative. If you're willing to say, hey, Paul, like, we could afford cover up to, say, $10,000 additionally, right? We have the money. We're okay with it. We really want the house. We're fine. Instead of doing the appraisal gap coverage, if you're 100% okay with it, which obviously you're committing to doing this, right? And sometimes this does work in regards to beating someone who's guaranteeing an appraisal, is you offer the seller to pay their closing costs up to $5,000, up to $7,000, or whatever it may be, right? You're gifting the seller at closing. So then their closing costs are lower. They're making more money.
Right.
And let's face it, at the end of the day, a seller's really main objective, I mean, most 99% of all of my sellers is to make the most money. So if you're willing to make them more money, your offer becomes pretty attractive, even though you may not be doing anything with appraisal, right? Where other ones are, but at the end of the day, they're like, well, yeah, but I'm making more money on that one, though. And if everything checks out, which, I mean, everything will. I mean, I don't know about what your agents are doing, but the way I spell out an offer, I've only got, I mean, not even joke. I just had one earlier this year. They went with our offer. Wasn't the best, but I was the most cleanest and best presented offer. And I was one of the only other agents that called. Okay, I'm not saying you have to use me, but there's just there's things that separate good and the best.
Right.
And trust me, I was even showing when we were presenting the 17 offers to April and Jesse, and there was 2. They're like, how would you like if I presented your offer like this? And they're like, and that's why we literally just go this. Trash. I mean, I'm not even joking. You wonder why some people are just frustrated with this market. I would question, what is your agent doing? Or what are they not doing to help you? Because I'm telling you, I am living proof that sees it on the listing side where it's like, dude, get out of this industry because you are just freaking blindly throwing offers out for your clients, and they wonder why they probably are still never won.
I mean, if it's not going to be the highest, best, or whatever, most attractive, at least try to make it.
Dude, I have some scribbles.
Yeah.
No phone calls. The email just says, see attached offer. What is your offer? Like, I'm not going to waste my time to try to figure it out.
Right. Well, yeah.
You know, it's like, what the frick? So anyways, yeah, I mean, I would just, there's my tip. Not saying you got to use me. I do feel like I do a pretty dang good job on making things happen and presenting it well, but I would just ask before you hire an agent to be your buyer's agent, help you find a house, ask them, how do you present my offers and what do you do to get my offer won?
Right.
Communication's huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many times where agents have been like, dude, I will call you. Stop calling me.
Right, yeah.
And I take pride in that because, dude, at the end of the day, I want that on the flip side. I tell you one thing, not that I don't have, I mean, sure, that I give you my recommendation. At the end of the day, it's a seller's choice to take the offer, not mine. But I do make sure that they know, hey, man, that agent communicated, this one didn't.
Right.
And I'll tell you at the end of the day, I want to work with someone who's going to talk to me to make sure that we're going to get to the closing table.
Right.
Makes a heck of a difference, man. And I know it goes both ways.
You.
Dude, yeah. So those are some tips. If you're looking to get in the buyer's market, I would watch this video a couple times, listen to those things. If you have any questions, obviously give us a call. You know our information's all in the show notes. Give us a call. Let us know if you have any questions. Financing, mortgage, maybe some questions on the PMI stuff that Devon mentioned, the fast pass approval, documents that are needed. I can't tell you how much the finance side makes everything smooth.
Could be bumpy.
It could be bumpy, but when you work with a great lender like Devon who checks all of the T's, dots the I's, make sure you're solid. I can tell you one thing, when you're working with a good lender, it makes everything on this side a lot more smoother, as it should be.
Right.
It should be. At the end of the day, it is stressful. I'm not going to discount that.
Yeah.
It is stressful, but it should hopefully be an enjoyable stress, if that even exists, to buy a house, because it should be a joy at the end of the day for moving into a home you want to be in. So, anyways, all our information's below. Get a hold of us. Love to work with you, or just even have a chat. Right. See if there's some answers we can just like Johnny's.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, dude, I'm telling you, I guarantee there's stuff out there you just don't know exists, and I know there's people listening right now that think they got to put 20% down to buy a house.
It's still
a thing, man.
A big statistic.
Even people with all the advertising where it's like,
you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, and people still buy into that stereotype. Like, well, I got to have all this money. No, you don't.
Right.
And trust me, like, you could own a house for the same rent payment you're paying today.
Right.
No, I can't. Yes, you can. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm Paul Seguin with eXp Realty.
I'm Devon Carr with Gold Star Mortgage.
This is Carr and Seguin Show. See you.
The primary purpose of this podcast series is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast series do not constitute legal or professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind. Gold Star Mortgage Financial Group, NMLS 3446, Equal Housing Lender.